Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining our side event, Japan's contribution towards decarbonized and resilient Asia. I'm Yoshiro Mizutani, Director for International Cooperation, Minister of the Environment, Japan. I will be the co-chair of this event with Dr. Bonsok, Assistant Director in the ASEAN Secretariat. Minister of the Environment Japan is pleased to organize this side event with excellent co-organizers, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGS, National Institute for Environmental Studies, and ASEAN Secretariat. This side event aims to announce the development of the ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan. We call it ACCSAP, and to update you on the latest progress made by ASEAN member states on the long-term strategies, development, and the use of the Asia-Pacific integrated model, namely AIM. We have 3 sessions in this side event. In the session 1, our speaker from ASEAN Secretariat and IGS will share the development of the ACCSAP with you. In the second session, speakers from Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand will explain about how to utilize AIM for their long-term strategies. And in the session 3, we have updates about AIM, city-level AIM, especially used in Malaysia cities, followed by a brief Q&A session. First, I would like to invite Mr. Yasuo Takahashi, Executive Director of IGS, to deliver the opening remarks. Takahashi-san, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. San, for your introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yasuo Takahashi. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to first of all express my sincere gratitude to all the participants joining us today to this event. Let me start by telling you a little bit about the support extended to the Asian region by Japan. The Ministry of the Environment of Japan and the Asia-Pacific International Model team have been supporting the development of an update of NDCs and long-term strategies in several countries in this region. This support includes joint research as well as implementing capacity development and training activities for young researchers. To promote actions on the ground, we have also been supporting cities in devising their own strategies to achieve carbon neutrality. Last year, the ASEAN State of the Climate Change Report, or ASCCR, was successfully released thanks to collaboration between the ASEAN Secretariat and Japan. This important report presents the current situation and outlook on climate change in the ASEAN region for the first time, and it also set out the ASEAN Climate Vision 2050, comprising goals and transition pathway on development, adaptation, and mitigation. Actually, this report includes 29 adaptation actions and 30 mitigation actions. National reports were prepared in collaboration with 15 research institutes from 10 ASEAN countries and policymakers from 10 countries of the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change. And then these were compiled into the ASCCR report by IGES researchers. Collaboration was carried out with research organizations such as the National Institute for Environmental Studies in Japan, the International Institute for Applied Science System Analysis, ESA, in Austria, and the Energy Transition Committee of UK, leading to the presentation of long-term transition pathways based on the best long-term projection science. Since its publication, the ASCCR has been mentioned at the ASEAN Summit, the Japan ASEAN Summit, and various side events at COP26 last year. The results of the report were also reflected in the Japan ASEAN Climate Change Action Agenda 2.0 and contributed to the ASEAN Secretary General's commitment on achieve 2050 net zero emissions. Furthermore, the report's key messages were published as a policy brief by the ASEAN Energy Center. In this way, the direction of collaboration is shared with policymakers and the research community in the energy sector, which is key to decarbonization. Responding to a recent request from ASEAN member states for continued support in this domain, the ASEAN Secretariat and Japan will work together in developing the ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan 2023 to 2030, ACCSAP in short, by COP28 in next year. This will build on the Action Plan 2019 to 2025 by the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change, as well as other sectorial action plans. The ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan, ACCSAP, will play a key role in the development and update of NDCs and long-term strategies to achieve ASEAN's long-term goal of achieving carbon neutrality and resiliency. This side event aims to announce the development of the ACCSAP to the international community and consider how to bridge AIM and the ACCSAP in a holistic manner. We will introduce the guiding document for developing the strategic action plan, which we hope will clarify the process for consultative development going forward. We would also very much welcome inputs from the audience in this regard. The latest progress on long-term strategies, development, and updates by member states on how they are making use of AIM will also be shared. IGES is always looking to strengthen our mutual ties with the ASEAN Secretariat, and as such, we plan to conclude an MOU to establish cooperation in areas of common interests and expertise, including climate change, sustainable cities, waste and plastic pollution, water environment governance, biodiversity loss, and disaster risk reduction. I am looking forward to even more opportunities to work together in the future with ASEAN Secretariat. Let me conclude my remarks by expressing my expectation for a successful and productive discussion today at this side event. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Takahashi-san. So next, I would like to welcome Dr. Junichi Fujino, Program Director at the Integrated Sustainability Center of IGS, to give us the framing presentation of this event. Fujino-san, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tani-san, and then welcome to our side event. I'm Junichi Fujino, and then I'd like to talk about today's framework and how we will go today's session. Do you know AIM model? Just one person? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. AIM is the abbreviation of Asia Pacific Integrated Model. We start this modeling development since 1989. So we have a more than 30 years history. This is a group of modeling. So we have a global model, national model, local model, or economic model, technology detail model, and also like ecosystem model. And this is also a group of people. So many researchers and also like Mr. Cha, also There are many researchers joining by online today. Also, policymakers, many policymakers also join this our network. So this is a group of people, group of modeling. And then we provide many scenarios, research results into the IPCC or national NDC process or long-term strategy process or many policy making process. Oh. It should work. Okay. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, and today we will introduce the Thailand, Indonesia, and then a Vietnam case. We contribute to develop like a national NDCs for Thailand through the collaboration with Professor Bundit Rim. He will have his presentation later. And then also like Indonesia. We also have an online presentation by the, thank you very much. Okay, so we already have developed many national and local scenarios. And then, yeah, Thailand case, and then Thailand kindly used our AI modeling to develop the nationally determined contribution in 2020. So then Dr. Bundit will explain much more detail. And then next, so these are framework. Also, we support long-term strategy too. Then Indonesia, we have Professor Retono and also Dr. Ucok, also Professor Rizaldi, and they will explain more detail, but we support to develop Indonesian long-term strategy through the simulation modeling. And then recently, Vietnam, so we have Dr. Phui. Yeah, thank you very much for joining from your ministry, Monday. So through the collaboration between Japanese Ministry of the Environment and then also Vietnam Ministry of the Environmental and Monday, and they decide to use the AI modeling for the supporting the national development, nationally determined contribution development. And then recently, they kindly introduced our result into LTS, long-term strategy version. So and he will explain much later. And then also, as the Mr. Takahashi already explained, now recently we support the ASEAN Secretariat, and then to develop like ACCSAP, ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan 2023 to 2030 under the guideline. Because IGES team support to develop ASEAN State of Climate Change report last year. And then these results already shared at the last COP26 by the Secretary General. And then Dr. Bonsok and then Mr. Dr. Arino will explain much detail later. So I would like to stop, but through this collaboration now, the very first day of the COP27, the new Secretary General, Mr. Simon Steele, he mentioned that this COP is implementation, and then implementation. So then, but we need a good roadmap, good blueprint to having the very efficient implementation, not only short term, but also long term. So then today, I hope that we can discuss how these kind of scenario modeling scientific tool can support like ASEAN policy making process or a national level or local level policy making process towards the climate neutral and then sustainable planet. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fujino. Now I would like to start the session 1 on the current status of ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan 2023 to 2030. We call it ACCSAP. That's development. So now I would like to invite Dr. Fonsok from ASEAN Secretariat and Dr. Arino Yosuke, a researcher of IGS, to give an overview about the ACCSAP. So, Fonsok-san, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think it's a quite important moment that we come together. And one of remarkable in this COP27 is mass-free. So it's grateful for all of us to come back again in the normal life. And while ASEAN Secretary take the floor first, I would like to, first of all, express our sincere thanks to the government of Japan that always put the top priority to cooperate with ASEAN, and particularly in the way of address environment and climate change. And, you know, as highlighted by our director of IGS, is really point out about the importance of the ASEAN-Japan Climate Action 2.0, which is quite important milestone that we together have to make a difference in our ASEAN region. So I think with that, I believe with the support of Ministry of Japan, Environment of Japan, and also I also thankful to the IGS team that work closely with us, ASEAN Secretariat, always, and in a number of environmental front, including emerging environmental issue. I believe our cooperation get closer and closer and stronger from day to day. So with that, today I have a great opportunity that with the support of the IGS team and government of Japan, I join you all today and also present about what is ASEAN State of Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan. And this really important moment that we can prepare together for the next COP. And also this the way we can address, like Dr. Fujino mentioned about this sort of action. So I just want to highlight 4 points that I would like to share with you. One is just provide you a little bit background. It may not boring much, but it's just about to make you understand about the trend and dynamic in ASEAN region, and then about the initiative of the ASEAN Climate Change Strategy Action Plan, and also recent development, how far we are at on this strategy action plan, and then give you some specific clear timeline and what is the next step. So I think this to give you a clear sort of picture, what is this strategic climate change action plan come from. This is the guiding document, the legal sort of reference to guide this sort of development of ASEAN, the ACCSAP. So first of all, the ASEAN Social Cultural Blueprint, that's really highlight the key important priority. I will elaborate further. ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, which is highlight about this climate change aspect, as well as the way how we can cope with climate change and also the risk of the climate change. And then ASEAN Strategic Plan on Environment and the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change Action Plan, that's important, and many other sectoral development plan. And also last, there are 2 important documents, ASEAN State of Climate Change Report and the ASEAN Joint Statement on Climate Change, where ASEAN come together, join with the global fora to present our commitment and the best practice where we can move forward. So you can see from the right-hand side, the AACC blueprint, which is provide the framework for the climate change aspect. You can see from the C1 sustainable management of natural resource, but I mean specifically on the C3, which is characteristic of the blueprint on sustainable climate, that is implemented by the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change as a strategy priority 5 as climate change. And then this, of course, climate change contribute to the SDG for sure. So this to give you a glance, what is the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change Action Plan and the other initiative. You can see this 8 thematic core thematic area that focus from mitigation, adaptation, and also technology, cross-sectoral coordination, and cooperation, and so on. So this I would like to highlight that in this COP, ASEAN come together under ASEAN chairmanship this year at Cambodia. Will present to the global COP27 about ASEAN commitment that the way we have to do together to strengthen the support for AMS and other developing countries to analyze climate risk, formulate and implement adaptation measure. With that, ASEAN will call upon developed country to a number of points, but I would like to highlight here, provide enhanced means of implementation. So whatever that Dr. Fujino just mentioned, action or implementation, they need to provide means of implementation and support ASEAN member states to formulate and implement their NDC with the focus to address the gap, the need, and also to prepare and communicate the adaptation communication. The second important point you may wish to take note, provide adequate and sustainable support to AMS to develop their plan related to adaptation and loss and damage, and to take into account the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and the Sendai framework for disaster risk 2015 to 2030. So I may not be elaborate in all because I think Dr. Arino will further elaborate about the state of climate change report. That is really important product, and that's the way we have to do more on in terms of right now try to address this broader strategic action plan to coordinate and harmonize regional strategy. So ACCSAP it expects to provide a regional strategic guidance until 2030. As you can see, the commitment that we have until 2030 to harmonize commitment and accelerate synergize adaptation mitigation action toward resilient and net zero ASEAN community in line with ASEAN Climate Vision 2050. So by enhancing, among other, the ASEAN Working Group action plan to align with the current and cross-sectoral development of international climate agenda. So in order to achieve this implementation, I think the cross pillar, especially across ASEAN economic community, ASEAN social cultural community, and also other working group that need to work together with ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change, ASEAN Secretariat, and also other ASEAN partner to make this a difference to our region. So the proposed outcome, it will be the ASEAN Climate Change Strategy Action Plan, which start from next year 2023 to 2030. So this to provide you the latest update, the concept note of that sort of ASEAN Climate Change Strategy Action Plan was delivered at the 13th ASEAN meeting, ASEAN Working Group meeting. And then later on, we have also a number of consultation process in order to feedback and endorse this sort of concept note at early stage. And this ASEAN Climate Change Action Plan, Strategy Plan is proposed to be equipped with a guiding document, which is developed with the support of MOEJ and IGES in parallel to develop the ASEAN State of Climate Change Strategic Action Plan proposal. The guiding document contains some background information, proposed approach, and the timeline for the development of the ASEAN Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan. So the update of the draft proposal of the ASEAN Climate Change Action Plan is under the review of the ASEAN-Japan mission to preliminarily indicate the interest to support the project and secure fund before it circulates to final circulation to ASEAN Working Group on National Focal Point on Climate Change and the ASEAN Senior Official on Environment for review and endorsement. So this the timeline that to propose this ASEAN the ASEAN Climate Change Strategy Action Plan. It must start from next year, but right now the way we do it, just more consultation with the member state and also with the sectoral body as well where necessary. So we hope that everything will start by next year, 2023, and end by the 2023. So if you need more information about ASEAN cooperation on environment, here's the reference website. And they have a knowledge portal that quite important, contribute to the region, to learn and to share and to care our region. With that, I would like to thank you all for your attention. And I also give the floor and invite Dr. Arino to give more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Von Sok, for your kind introduction and for giving us the overall view from the ASEAN's regional entities perspective. So for now, I'd like to just give you, draw your attention to the next ACCSAP, what kind of approach we will take through this development of the new ASEAN's action plan until 2030. So the essence is we are forging ahead together with to a resilient and also that decarbonized society. So in order to achieve this, we need to really come up with a new perspective, new approach to integrate mitigation and adaptation. So not only thinking about the net zero pathway to the net zero and the negative emission in the future, but we need to think together about adaptation pathway along the line of the decarbonized pathway. So background and approach, and finally, I will show you the general indicative framework. So I will skip here. Last year at this side event, kindly the Secretary General of the ASEAN pledged net zero, achieving a 2050 net zero transition. So it was a historical kind of a remark. So encouraged by his remark, we are now working together for this long-term goal. So we will take the approach to integrate transparency and the transformation, not only achieving enhanced transparency and global stock taking, but also we need to achieve the transformation by mobilizing technology and finance. So we need to integrate systems also involving multi-stakeholder engagement, and we will go diagonally to the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement, not only net zero and a resilient society. And importantly, ASEAN pledged the net zero on the round height side and peaking out the emissions, but as early as possible after 2030. This is a huge change, paradigm shift of the ASEAN strategy based on the development goal, but synergizing adaptation mitigation is important. And this is a broad approach to integrate ASEAN's ACCSAP, starting from the ASEAN's action plan to 2025. We are guided by the long-term ASEAN Climate Vision 2050, achieving net zero, and then we will co-create the 2030 strategic action plan. And by referring to the sectoral and cross-sectoral plans, for example, starting from the energy and food agriculture and forestry, transport, infrastructure, and finance. So all sorts of the sectoral and cross-sectoral plans need to be combined together for the ACCSAP. Not only developing the ACCSAP, we need to finally mainstream into the opposite feedback to the each sectoral strategies after the development of ACCSAP by next year, COP28. So I will conclude soon, but we will take the two-tier approach, development of ACCSAP and mainstream ACCSAP to sectoral plans of the ASEAN. And importantly, long-term visions, orange one, need to really guide the 2030 action of the ASEAN. And we need to integrate mitigation adaptation, and we need to mobilize finance system, also technology transfer system. And after that, to tier 2, mainstreaming phase. How to mitigation and adaptation can be really integrated. This is just an image, but mitigation adaptation, systematic integration, we need to think deeply about a systematic, more system level analysis, not only technology, finance, like infrastructure, land use, nature conservation, city structure, local vulnerable people, socio-economic change, and industrial structure and demographic change. So at a deeper level, mitigation adaptation need to be synergized, also integrated. So scientific information should be really incorporated into the blue one, ACCSAP. So scientific community will give our best, make our best to achieve developing the approach of the science about mitigation, adaptation, integration by COP28, and also by taking 3 more years to co-create this approach. I will conclude. So we will be working together, led by the ASEAN Secretariat Environmental Division, and also ASEAN sectoral bodies like energy, biodiversity, also newly established ASEAN Center for Climate Change. So we are really looking forward to work together and for the direction of this pathway. So I will conclude my presentation. We want to involve younger generations to other processes. So we will invite youth groups to our discussion, co-creation, and the tier 1 and tier 2. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Fonsok, for expressing the ASEAN commitment to the climate change. And also, thank you, Dr. Arino, for the enthusiastic explanation about ACCSAP. So we look forward to the ACCSAP at COP28 next year. So now we will take a minute to have a photo session. And after photo session, Dr. Fonsok will be moderating the event in session 2 and session 3.
それでは、Zoom の方の切り替えをお願いいたします。例のあれですね。ありがとうございます。2の方の司会だけすいませんがお願いします。
Again, we come to the session 2. It's quite challenge for us because maybe the sound is really a bit sort of disrupt our conversation. I hope we need to do more in terms of focus. Be with us. I try to say clear. I'm grateful that I can moderate this second session. A quite important session that we learned from the champion country in ASEAN doing this sort of climate action and research and development for the new way of doing in ASEAN region. So we have a number of prominent speakers from ASEAN member states and who also used to be the national think tank to support the development of ASEAN state of climate change. So we have a great opportunity to have all these key speakers with us. First of all, I would like to invite Dr. Luong Quang Huy, the Department of Meteorological, Hydrological and Climate Change of the Ministry Natural Resource and Environment Vietnam to present about the Vietnam case that really champion in this area. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. And can you please put on my presentation, please? Okay, right. I only have about 6 minutes. Yeah, and then I will pass the mic to my colleagues who are responsible for the AAM model. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the recent legal documents development in Vietnam that we working on to achieve our commitment at the COP26 last year. So this is what our emission looked like in the past few years, and it looks like it's going to be increasing quite rapidly in the very near future. And by 2030, we're looking at about 900 million tons from emission, according to the BAU in Vietnam. And up to about 2050, it's going to be even almost like 5 times from now, up to 1,200 or even 1,500 million tons. So that's the BAU. So to achieve the COP26 commitment that, well, we actually, by 2020, we already submitted our NDC in which that we wanted to reduce about 27% compared to the BAU. That 27% is equivalent to about 400 million tons of CO2. So equivalent to about 1 year of our emission now until 2030. But then because of the COP26 commitment to 2050 to net zero, and then we just submitted a few days ago, we just submitted another NDC, and actually that with support of the AIM teams that help us with all the modeling and data analysis as well. So we compare the AIM models and our analysis. So we have to reduce 43.5% by 2030, according to the BAU. So that equivalent about 250 million tons of CO2 equivalent every year from now to 2030 for us. So that's quite a number. And we wanted to reach the emission peak by 2035, because as you know that, well, we also committed to coal phase down by 2030 and coal phase out by 2040. So that means that, well, all our energy mix will change, and currently that we had about 20% of our renewable energy in our energy mix, but by 2030 that number probably would be about 40-45%, and by 2050 if you want to reach a net zero, it would be about 70 to 75% by 2050. So, and that the energy sector looks like to 2050, and if you look at the renewable energy, and that like the yellow color, it would be about 65 to 70% by 2020 by 2050 there, but also by 2030 already it would be about 40-45% for us in order to achieve our NDC commitment, which we submitted a few days ago, that we would like to reduce. But Vietnam, that we got quite the potential for wind energy, and currently is quite a number of large-scale projects for offshore wind power has been developing. And also we're taking the plan, as I just mentioned, that with our Prime Minister approved action plan to commit with the COP26 commitment, that all of others energy consuming sector will have to slowly transit to renewable energy and cleaner energy. And so that the specific objectives of our energy related objective, but that green energy, but from different types, and also we have wind and wave power as well, and renewable energy, that it's just for 2030, and up to 2050 that would be a lot of other objectives that at the currently that we're working on, and we have our national strategy to 2050 issued a few months ago, and all the private sector and public sector are now working on full speed to achieve our objectives to set in that decision by our Prime Minister. So by 2030 for energy sector, we have to reduce about 457 million tons of CO2 equivalent, and that is just the energy sector. And also for agricultural sector, forestry, waste, and industrial processes, we set our very specific target for reducing GHG emission reduction, and that is already putting our NDC, and every line ministry and also the business sectors have now developed their action plan to achieve this, and that is being realized now as we speak in Vietnam. But to 2050 is going to be a lot more difficult for us, and because for energy sector, they have to reduce about 91.6% compared to the BAU, and that's why I'm saying that while we will have to totally phase out of coal power, and we have to increase our renewable energy to about 70% in order to reduce that much by 2035, and then also by 2050, sorry. So within we have a lot of activities that we find potential for our energy supply and also our energy use in order to reduce what we already committed. And currently, we also have our energy planning in Vietnam being revised and will soon be approved, in which that we will see that what kind of projects that we need to totally abandon. For example, the new coal power plants that we planned before, and now we have to stop that, and then we have to develop a more renewable energy projects there. And that is how that would look like. We have to reduce from now until 2050. With the red line is our BAU, and the blue line is our target from now until 2050. And so that is, at the moment, it is theory. I have to say that it's at the moment a theory. But every sector and all the way down to the business association, they already have the action plan to start working on this. And many of them already went a step ahead by making their action plan. And so we hope that with the support from many other development partners, including Japan and other institutes within Japan, to help us with our quest to achieve the commitment that we made here at the COP and also at the international level. Thank you very much. And I will leave that to my colleagues to tell you more about the AAM model in Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very important message, and congratulations to Vietnam for this new commitment. May I take the floor to take the opportunity to invite the colleague from Vietnam as well, Dr. Nguyen Thung Lam from the VNPI. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us from Vietnam. I think it's grateful to have you to share the model of AMIs that the AIM that have been used, and this is the way try to plan better for Vietnam. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you see the slide from my presentations?
Anyone can project the. Yes, we manage that. Give a second.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So continue with the Dr. Leung Quang Huy. I would like to share with you some contribution from the AIM models to the develop of the national strategy on climate change for 2050 in Vietnam. So Dr. Huy just mentioned about the strategy and with some figure. And I will tell you how we, the AIM team, have to develop some scenario for the GHG emission for this strategy. Next, please. Yeah. So the AIM team that have the work with the scenario for Vietnam quite a long time ago, and we have the discussed between MONRE and MOEJ on the 6th of Vietnam-Japan Environmental Policy Dialogue, and organized in 2020, and it's come to agree that the development of the long-term strategy of Vietnam should utilize the results from the AIM models. So both sides have agreed that, and NIST and IGS and the AIM team have the work together with the DCC and the Environment of Vietnam to develop some scenario for the GHG emission for Vietnam. And the AIM model has to utilize to provide the overview of long-term GHG peak of Vietnam. And also it suggested some potential countermeasure as well as the path to achieve the mitigation targets of Vietnam. So to do so, the AIM team have used 3 models for this study. The first one is the extended snapshot, the model to assess the emissions up to 2050. And another one is the AIM and use to assess the technology option to achieve the future GHG mitigation targets. And the last one is the CGE to assess the economic impact to reduce the GHG emissions for the scenario in Vietnam. Next, please. Yeah, so utilize those models. The reason have the some remark and suggestion to the team to develop the strategy. It's such that it's necessary to set the peak year before 2035 and consider the high proportion of the renewable energy in electricity generations. And also the model also consider about the power generation in the coal power plant will peak in 2025 and decline to zero by 2050. Some other options like the new gas power plant, CCS, and other hydrogen have to estimate with some mitigation figure in the models. And okay, so next, please. So here, you also see some estimation from the model that will utilize to figure out in the national strategy on the climate change in Vietnam that Dr. Huy just also mentioned before. And we have the two period by 2030 and 2050. So I will not repeat this one because Dr. Huy just mentioned before. So please come to next one. Yeah, in the 2050, this model show that the emission peak will be about 2035 and then decline rapidly. And also in some other sector, they also mentioned about how in the energy sector, that's the focus of the model, the figure will decrease by 91.6%, and the emission did not exceed 1 million tons of CO2 equivalent. Next one, please. So for those model, there are some remarks that we found out that the earlier hydrogen and carbon capture will be introduced, and the earlier the GHG emission peak, and that leads to avoid the rapid emission reduction in the short term after the peak. And in order to avoid stranded assets, the CCS must be ready for being equipped with the industrial and power plant in advance. And the second one is to achieve the net zero emission. The model estimates amount the investment about 300 billion US dollars. So based on those results, it's suggests that the international support will have a lot and to accelerate the peak out, and also to help the country to achieve both GDP growth and GHG emission reductions. And the last one is still need a good and effective coordination among the line ministry in the country with the direction from the top leader in implementing existing climate change related policies, and regular review and update of the military action plan, very important to achieve the targets of the net zero emission by 2050 for Vietnam. So this is some summarize of the team work that help to contribute to the development of the national strategy on climate change for Vietnam up to 2050. So I would like to share with you very quickly about that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lam, for this important experience and this to inform the audience about the AIM model and the commitment of Vietnam. Let us join our hand to congratulate Vietnam for this good experience, and we will make use this experience to share among ASEAN member states as well. With that, I think, may I proceed to the next item agenda due to the time constraint. Right now, we have a prominent speaker from Indonesia as well, Professor Rijadi Boer, and along with other Professor Retno and Professor Unkuk from the ITB Indonesia. So with that, Professor, may I ask your kind consideration to summarize to the point, because the time it's a bit challenge for us. But I mean, I would like to take opportunity to thank as well for your, for your busy schedule to participate our online sort of session. So the floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Chairman. So good afternoon, everybody. So let me explain about the AIM's contribution in the development of Indonesian long-term strategy. As you might know, Indonesia already submitted the long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilient 2050 last July 2021. And now also we are still in the process, because in our submission before, actually we might not achieve the net zero by 2050, but it might be achieved 2060 or earlier. So now actually we are still working with the government in designing the alternative scenario for achieving the net zero emission by 2060. And we also have submitted a few months back on the enhanced NDC. Now actually in terms of the commitment of Indonesia under the enhanced NDC increasing from 29% into 31.4, and then under the conditional one going up into 44%. So you know that in the process of developing these scenarios, actually we really use the AIM model, and also in combination with some other model. So you can, as you can see here in the framework of our process in designing the long-term strategy. So we use the actual AIM and use an AIM extended snapshot for the scenario development under the energy sector, and then also the full dashboard for also development scenario for the agriculture and forest. And then at the end, we also evaluate on the implication on macroeconomics using the AMCGE. So from this process is quite clear actually. The contribution of AIM model in the developing of long-term strategy for Indonesia is quite important. So in the context of our sector, the AIM contribution and the process of development of long-term strategy for the forest. So actually we develop our dashboard based on AIM Avalu A and AIM Avalu B, which has been developed a few years back. So this is actually the main model that we developed in designing the strategy for deep decarbonization of agriculture and forest land use. So the AIM also contribute in the process of part of the policy dialogues on deep decarbonization pathway with the support of IGs. And also during that process, we also take out the experience from other countries as well, how actually we can really also tap some lesson learned in developing and designing our long-term strategy for low carbon. So we, as I already mentioned before, so we also have developed the long-term strategy for low carbon climate resilient 2050, and also development of roadmap on NDC. In addition to that, so we also get some benefit from the AIM modeling team on the capacity building, especially the involvement of the student. So actually we involve some of the our young scientists in getting experience also in using this model for the research. As we also know that actually annual and every year actually there's also cross-country science annual meeting at NIES, held at NIES. So actually this is also a very good forum where actually each country can also share experience and also tap the lesson learned in the process that we are doing in our country. So in the context of pathways, this actually we would like to explain briefly Indonesian low carbon development in 2050. So we expect actually our emissions still above the zero emission by 2050. However, in the context of our sector, so we expect actually we already achieve a net sink by 2030. So we call it follow net sink. Of course, in the context of energy sector, so we rely very much on the decarbonizing the power sector, and also making this become net zero. The reliance on the carbon capture storage technology is also quite significant. So I think later on, actually, our colleagues will expand a bit more on this part. But I just give you a brief in terms of the target that we would like to achieve by 2030 for the Avalu sector. Actually, we are going to turn out the sector from the net emitter as this year to become a net sink by 2030. So there are quite ambitious of target that we would like to do. Now, actually, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is already developed a work plan for achieving the volume netting by 2030 with involvement of the private as well as also the public. So there are a number of key policies that has been developed for that, especially related into the peatland moratorium, including also the incentive and disincentive policy, as well as the Indonesian Environmental Fund, actually the new mechanism for providing fund for supporting the action on climate action. So this actually drive by the process in the country, including also the contribution from the IM model. So in the context of energy, it's quite similar also. There are big contributions also from IM modeling team, the IM modeling, how actually we develop the designing the low-carbon strategy for energy sector. So in this case, I would like to hand over to our Professor Retno. Please, Retno.
Thank you very much. Following what Professor Rizadi explained about contribution AIM in Hulu sector, then I would like to explain about the contribution in energy sector. First, I introduce here that AIM extended snapshot and use for the CG has already used to assess our national energy policy. This national energy policy still under process now because of the old national energy policy not yet include climate change in this policy. Then after this policy, once it's finished, then the National Energy Council will bring this into the Parliament, and Parliament will determine this national energy policy to become under law. And then the next step already discussed by Professor Burr. We also developed LTS RCCR using AIM extended snapshot as well as AIM in use. And then we also include AIM CGE to assess the impact of the pathway of energy sector into the macroeconomic parameter. And then we also prepare for the roadmap of NDC as well as enhanced NDC using this model. In the subnational, we have already using this for developing low carbon society in DKI Jakarta, Bali, West Java province, and now will be in Riau province. And then education and capacity building, we also produce some master degree, thesis, and also academic publication. For the company or business, we now are preparing for decarbonization roadmap for oil and gas company, Pertamina in this, and nickel, lead, tin, gold mining, and pulp paper industry. For the gold mining, lead, and also nickel, this is under Mine ID, Mining Indonesia. And the next is for the energy modeling. The latest work is Indonesia NZE 2060 roadmap, and also improving for national energy policy. We use AIM extended use under the Indonesia LTS RCCR roadmap, Indonesia Enhanced NDC 2030, and also DKI Jakarta, West Java province, and also Bali province. The next is what we will discuss about what is the result for energy modeling for national energy policy, and still under process because of there is some party that is a conflict between the model itself and also what is the pathway, and we now under finalization. And there are some publication here, books. There are some books between Polu and Apolu, Polu, non-Polu, non-Apolu, and also Polu. And post-climate action is specific in energy sector. And then we also using this there are some books from Indonesia. And this is our publication for DKI Jakarta, for Bali, and also for West Java, and also in the power sector. And Pak Ucok will continue what is we are doing with the improvement for national energy policy.
Thank you. Yes, as mentioned by
we are working with National Energy Council to prepare for national energy policy that will be updated in the next month. And this is the latest modeling using the IM model that we assist the National Energy Council to develop the revision of National Energy Council, National Energy Policy. So the results, the temporary result that we have right now, we target the demand for the energy. Final energy will reach around 455 million ton oil equivalent in 2060 with different types of energy. Next, please. And we also calculated because the main mitigation technology that will be used in our energy sector will be in power. This one is the overview about what will be the development of the power sector in Indonesia in the 2060 up to 2060 that we can see here that what will be mostly will be rely on to reduce the emission. We rely on the solar PV and also in the in terms of per capita kilowatt hour, we will have around 6,500 kilowatt hour per capita in 2060. Next, please. Yeah, this is the result of the modeling for the primary energy and also the emissions. As you can see here, in 2060, in the energy sector, we still have residual emission around 129 million ton in 2060. Although we already have zero emission in the power sector, but we still have emissions from transport and also from industrial sector because industry is relative.
Okay, Paucho. I think the connection is not very good. So actually, that's the end of our presentation about the contribution of IM on development of long-term strategy in Indonesia. So because the time is also very short, so I would like to hand over to the chair. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rizaldi, and also Professor Rednose and Dr. Yukok for excellent presentation. And this experience is unique that you apply various sector as well as, you know, at a different scale. This to inform AIM model may be quite important and provide more flexibility and so on. So with that, we thank you and we will keep you, you know, in contact and for the future work. And right now, may I invite the next speaker, also the prominent Professor Bandap Lame Chokchai from Thailand, will present the AIM model and the success story about this AIM model, how it contributes to the Thai sort of development of the NDC and so on. So the floor is your Professor.
Thank you. Oh. Okay. So good afternoon, distinguished guests from COP event, and good evening for AIM colleagues in Asia and Southeast Asian country. Now Thailand is presenting how AIM involved in terms of long-term strategy. I'm presenting on behalf of research team from Thailand, not the government. We have the roadmap to low carbon Thailand. Since we participate in workshop several years ago, the roadmap, of course, we learned from Japanese roadmap such as Kyoto City, and we use that lesson learned, and we now have the roadmap for Thailand, such as in case of transport sector, in power sector, in the building and other sector, and we have all the action. We have AIM brochure in Thailand. We participate AIM since year 2009 up to now almost 14 years. We have the first brochure with the NAS and Japanese AIM team in year 2010 using AIM EXS, and then we have our own roadmap that is roadmap to low carbon Thailand 2050 using only AIM and use, but in the year 2012, and this year we have the last roadmap. That is the last scenario I would like to say. That is the roadmap to net zero greenhouse gas 2050. This is only the roadmap from our research. It's not the target of the Thai government. In our roadmap, we also identify the linkage between SDG and the net zero emission 2050 for Thailand. You can see that to achieve net zero emission, we can achieve almost all SDG of the UN by the year 2050. In Paris Agreement, that is COP27 in 2015, we support Thai government using MNUs to identify BAU and also greenhouse gas mitigation action. We found that Thailand can achieve 20% of GHG reduction by the year 2030, and of course there will be another 5% for international support. That means the total is 25%. If you look at national greenhouse gas emission profile of Thailand from the base year is year 2000 until recently is year 2018. You can find this information from the reference. You can see Thailand just submit updated long-term strategy this week. I think that this week. This is inventory up to the year 2018. You can see that emission profile of Thailand almost be stable except year 2013 and 18. Yeah. And in Thailand's second updated NDC that the Thai government just submit last week to NFC, you can find from the website that I already put in the chat box. You can see that we use AIM to identify the BAU, and this BAU 555 by the year 2030 is the same as NDC, and is the same as the first updated NDC. So in the second updated NDC, we follow that BAU, and now we identify that thing we have up to now we have such as advanced technology and cost of some technology decreasing drastically according to IPCC 6 assessment report, such as the solar PV, the wind, for example, and also for electric vehicle. So that's why we identify that from the government action now we can achieve about 30% by the year 2030. Of course, another 10% that contribute from international support. So we call 30% as unconditional. That is the domestic action, and additional 10% will be supported. In Thailand's second updated NDC, you can see that Thailand will peak emission by the year 2025, and the peak is around less than 390 million tons. 390 million tons. And the target of NDC is the 40% reduction by the year 2030. That is emission in the year 2030 will be around 330 if we have international supported. In long-term strategy, last year we submit long-term strategy, and this year we update the revised version. You can find from the website of UNFCCC. I already put in the chat box. You can see that we start here from long-term strategy. Of course, probably we have national adaptation action, and we have the working group. In both mitigation and adaptation, we have national consultation, of course. That means different stakeholders that are from government, academic people, public sector, private sector, for example. Of course, we formulate the action using AIM, that in this time we use both AIM end use and MCGE, and after we file our constitution from national consultation on it, the focal point of Thailand, of course, will follow in ministerial process such as subcommittee approval until National Climate Change Committee, and then cabinet approval and submit to UNFCCC. The updated LTS of Thailand this year already submit few days ago. Our process using AIM involved in this shaded area, so we do not interfere government decision. We just work based on the research. For my team, I work with my postmaster and postdoctoral student. This is how AIM involved in NDC and updated long-term strategy and all climate change mitigation in Thailand. You can find from the reference. This is the figure that I extract from Thailand updated LTS. That is the updated version. You can see that we use AIM and use to identify technology, that is technology selection. And then now we know energy consumption, the same profile as Indonesian team present. Energy mix and energy system cost is very important. And then energy mix technology now, we use that information for economic assessment. And then from MCGE, now we can compare GDP before and after, for example. In updated NDC, in the stakeholder, we decide to use the 2-degree pathway. That means the last year long-term strategy as the BAU. And then we compare net zero emission to that BAU. That means when Thailand has peak emission by 2025, we will not use BAU. So we will compare emission reduction to the peak emission, that is 2025, hopefully. And this is the result that you can find from the report of Thailand updated NDC UNFCCC, that this is net zero CO2. You can see that Thailand will peak in terms of CO2 2025. Of course, the main sector is energy sector and IPBU. Agricultural sector, mainly methane, okay, mainly methane. And the government promised to increase the LULUCF to maintain maximum 120 million tons. And also now we can identify net zero greenhouse gas. You can see that the peak emission by 2025, the peak emission, that emission exactly the same as NDC. That is around the net emission is around 333 million tons, and the peak by the year 2025 is around 388 million tons, or less than 400 million tons. And by the time of net zero CO2 emission, that means 2050, you can see from the graph that we will have the remaining emission about 60 million tons, only 60 million tons. That's very hard to reduce. This 60 million tons come from 2 million tons of methane, about 2 million tons of methane. If we can reduce methane before 2050, of course, Thailand can achieve net zero greenhouse gas by 2050. And this is the timeline that we put in the report. You can find from Thailand updated long-term strategy. We use AIM and use to identify emission pathway. And then you can see this example in the report. If you download, you can see all the sectors. So this is example for power sector. You can see that in the power sector, start from year, if you look at year 2025, year 2025. So we try to increase the use of renewable energy. By the year 2030, we will apply solar with battery storage, And by the year 2040, we will fade down coal power plant, and we will increase the share of renewable electricity about 60%. And of course, by the year 2040, at this moment, the government Thai government already appoint subcommittee on CCS. So we plan to utilize CCS after 2040. And by the year 2050, Thailand can achieve net zero CO2. Of course, in that year, you can see that we have to increase the renewable electricity above 70%. If we follow the pathway, Thailand can achieve net zero greenhouse gas by 2065. And this is a second example of the timeline that we extract from MNU. You can see that by the year 2025 in transport sector, this is transport sector, we try to increase the use of biofuel and electric vehicle, electric train. By the year 2030, you can see that we will almost not fade down. I would like to say that fade out internal combustion engine. And because according to the government plan, we will increase the share of battery EV above 30% by the year 2030. If you look at the chart on the right-hand side, you can see that IC engine, the share is decreasing. Why? XEV stands for plug-in hybrid and battery EV increasing. And of course, after 2050, IC engine almost be zero. This information is very important, not only for net zero emission, but also for the society and for the business side. That's all for presentation of Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's grateful to learn from you. I think this is one of the most important inform about the policy science interface that Thailand use this AM model continuously for a number of strategy and action plan that to guide the great success of plan. And this will be also informed for all the ASEAN member states and partners to consider as a part of complement to make this sort of NDC and decarbonize process in the ASEAN region. So with that, I would like to invite our last speaker, but quite important, Professor Cho Lum Wai from the University of Malaysia to present the Malaysia case. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Wongso. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to be here. We heard from the previous presenters the application of AIM at mostly the national level. In Malaysia, we actually try to apply aims at the city and regional level. And the purpose of today is to share with you, oops, what is this doing here? To share with you our experience in doing that. Not working. Thank you. So what we do in Malaysia is the Asia Pacific Integrated Model. In Malaysia, we promote that under our S2A or Science to Action framework. And I think when we say science to action, what should actually we focus on would be action itself. As mentioned earlier, it's about taking action, it's about implementing. So one of the things under science to action is to ensure that we are able to use science to inform good policy making at the city and regional level. And that would be then taken further into real action. So which is why for us, we believe in good policies being made from the beginning with implementation in mind. And they must be scientifically rooted and people-centric. And this is just to quickly show how we actually have applied the AIM model to actually 9 cities in Malaysia. That includes 5 cities within the Iskandar Malaysia region. And the circles actually are showing the potential reduction that can be achieved for those cities in their target years. And for the interesting cases of like Kuala Lumpur, indicated by the purple circles on the top, as well as Iskandar Malaysia, indicated by the light blue circles towards the right, we are able to see that there are 2 circles, and the AIM model has been used for 2 cycles. One to help us to actually simulate the potential reduction that can be achieved by 2030 with the achievement of low carbon society in mind. And the other one is to help the cities to actually get nearer to, if not achieving net zero emission by 2050. And apart from that, we applied that to a few other cities as well of different sizes as indicated on the map. And I think I'll just quickly go through this just to show you how we actually operationalize science to action and the use of the AIM model in Malaysia. Now, importantly is we have the right people there. And if we look at that blue, the red box, to the left, we have Japan counterparts. And to the right, we have Malaysia counterparts. And the overlap between the blue and the green is our interesting way of how we actually integrate closely policymakers with the research community. So in a way, our experience was that the policymakers sat on the research team as well. And here we are supported very strongly by the Kyoto University, Okayama University, and the National Institute for Environmental Studies, Japan. And of course, at the same time, we need to make sure that the model and the operationalization of the model fits well with the institutional setup we have in our different regions. And with that, then we move into the science part of it. And this is where the AIM model is used in an iterative process involving stakeholders and people as indicated by the diamond-shaped focus group discussion. And comments and feedback from stakeholders and the communities and are fed back into the process. Eventually, we would come up with a policy, which is the Low Carbon Society Blueprint. And the example used here is for Iskandar, Malaysia. Finally, the blueprint would be mainstreamed into the existing legal system where we actually apply that and impose that within our statutory plans for cities. And these are used for development and planning control, which means that new development projects in the cities will have to comply with the policies set, being helped by the scientific findings that we've got. And I think I wouldn't have time to go through this, but just to quickly highlight that for Iskandar, Malaysia's case, we started very early on, as far back as 2009, and using the AIM model with strong support from the Japanese government through the SATRAPS framework, we were able to come up with the Low Carbon Society Blueprint for Iskandar, Malaysia, outlining some 283 programs for implementation. So that was done in 2011, 2012. And you can see that science-based climate policies and action plans. We also disaggregated the results into the 5 cities that are located within Iskandar, Malaysia. And apart from that, coming down one level, we see tools for action. Again, with strong support from the Japanese institutions, we actually developed CASB that is localized for Iskandar, Malaysia. And our blueprint also requires that stock taking and monitoring be done. And we are happy to share that in Iskandar, Malaysia, that started off back in 2015. And by now, we have got actually 5 series of monitoring done. And it shows that Iskandar, Malaysia has successfully reduced up to 19.7% in terms of intensity of GDP of the GHG emission in the economic region, despite very strong and rapid development. And apart from Iskandar, Malaysia, the AIM model has been used for our national capital city of Kuala Lumpur. So shown here are just 2 documents, one back in 2017-18, which is the document to lead Kuala Lumpur towards becoming a low carbon society by 2030. And just very recently, we also helped the city working together again with Tokyo Metropolitan Government, supported by IJES specifically, develop the carbon neutral action plan for one urban precinct to the northeast of Kuala Lumpur. And on the right-hand side, I wouldn't have time to go into that. It's just an exemplification of how the AIM model actually produced good results that enables us to communicate very well with mayors and city governors so that they are able to understand the effects and impacts of whether they, if you do so, what will happen? If you don't do anything, no action, what will happen? That kind of simulation. And that actually helps us to get very good buy-ins from city governments. And again, just very quickly, the same processes have been applied as well to the city of Putrajaya, which is our national administrative capital. Pengerang, a new all industry and petrochemical development in the southern part of Johor as well. And it's very important to help the very energy intensive development to actually cut down carbon. And interestingly, for MOA 2030, we actually successfully directly internalize and mainstream low carbon society using AIM again into a statutory development plan. So the MOA local plan for 2030, 2019, 2021 was prepared, successfully internalized that, and that is now being used for planning and development control. And lastly, we also helped a medium-sized city called Segamat to the northern part of the state of Johor in Malaysia to also explore the possibility of going low carbon. So finally, on reflection, I think it's important for us to share what we could say about the use of AIM with very strong support from our Japanese friends, with very good synergistic effect that we actually have among research institutions, ourselves, University Technology Malaysia, as well as city governments and so on. So we found that actually low carbon society is actually a very attractive concept that cities, mayors are able to accept very well. That's the way forward. And the case of Iskandar Malaysia proved to us, if we start early and if we haven't started doing that, we need to act now actually. But if we start early and we start pioneering, actually it's very good because they have got a long way to getting to where they need to get to in terms of emission reduction. And in that process, of course, good scientific research is very important. And that's where AIM becomes so valuable for us. And policies, conversely, supported by science, will be effective in terms of inducing the actual GHG emission reduction. And in doing that, one very important dimension is actually to have progressive local and regional leaders so that they are able to understand, they have the passion, they will buy in and so on. And at the same time, highest level government support is also very important to expedite the whole thing. And at the initial stages, in particular for developing country, the availability of international funds in a way of joint research, as well as technical knowledge support from various institutions become very, very important. So those are some of the things we learn and we hope to share with you for the case of Malaysia, how we apply AIM to the subnational level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chow, for your excellent present the case from the city level, which is applied across the country. It's quite significant to confirm this AMI. AMI is really important to contribute. So now we have all that speaker present to all the audience. So I take this opportunity to quickly give the key simple message before we ask the question, give the floor to the participant for any question. I think to me, from the presentation, I can see AMI, AIM is quite important instrument or tool as a science and policy interface that provide a great sort of extent to guide the sound science process, to guide the meaningful consultation process, and adapt to the local context and institutional setting. And with that, I believe this also provide important, greater flexible in terms of, working with a different sort of level, city level, national level, or country level, or sector level. So this is a very important instrument, provide a great sort of flexibility. One thing to note, I think, it's the level of a complement. I mean, it's quite a well complement with other new tools. That is not really, one thing can fit all, but this tool, this instrument work well with other tools as well. So that is one of the key things that we should also remember. So this quite important tool that a lot contribute to the key document of the climate action from ASEAN member states. And with that, this not really from the higher level national, but also can apply at the city level. So I hope that this AMI will be replicating in other ASEAN member states as well as in other cities in order to accelerate our action to address climate change. As a case of Malaysia, the prioritized action have been identified through this model as well, and the consultation process. With that, I think we come to end our session, but I mean, before we end, we have opportunity to give to the participant. If you have any question, burning question, maybe 1 or 2 questions before we end. Okay, can you?
Hello? Okay, it works. My name is Nautilus of the IGS. I do not have some question, but the comments as a researcher. And I'd like to suggest 2 things. And one is the utilization of such a model. But actually, for example, Thailand will be a developed country, definitely in the 2050. But what kind of developed country they would like to be or they should be, that is not well studied, I think. So I think that there may be several scenarios that can show what kind of developed country they would be. So those kind of consideration may include several important implications in the sense of the greenhouse gas emissions. So those are, I think that those are actually this kind of long-term energy, long-term strategy related studies are very important chance for each countries to consider that kind of future scenarios of each country. So that's what I'd like to stress one thing. And another thing is that the model is a very good communication tool between decision makers and the modelers. So how to make use of such kind of a communication tool in the decision making, I think that is very important. And I found that the Malaysian case that was very successful. So I'd like to share those kind of experiences within those member states. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your excellent comment. And that's, I think the concerned speaker will take note that this is very important. I apologize for any sort of question. Right now, I would like to close this session because we come to end and we a bit, 5 minutes late. So with that, I just thank all the key speaker and the audience that joining us today. And so with that, I would like to also invite Mr. Ono Hiroshi, the Vice Minister for Global Environment Affairs at the Ministry of Environment, Japan, to give the closing remark. Or is yours, sir?
Thank you very much for your introduction and good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the co-organizers of this side event, IGES, NIS, and ASEAN Secretariat. Thank you very much. I also thank all the speakers online as well as in person and the audience for your participation. As this COP is called the Implementation COP or Action COP, Japan is committed to enhancing action towards a decarbonized and resilient Asia together with partner countries. To this end, cooperation with ASEAN member states is particularly important. At the ASEAN-Japan Summit meeting held last year, Japan put forward the ASEAN-Japan Climate Change Action Agenda 2.0 with the 3 pillars of ASEAN Action Agenda 2.0, namely transparency, mitigation, and adaptation, Japan significantly expands its support to ASEAN member states. In implementing the Action Agenda 2.0, the Asia Integrated Model, or AIM, is a key science-based tools for helping the development and update of long-term strategies. I welcome the progress presented in today's event and hope that the long-term strategies will be implemented so that Asia as a whole can reach the goal of carbon neutrality and resilience. Next year is the 50th anniversary of ASEAN-Japan Friendship and Cooperation. At the ASEAN-Japan Environmental Cooperation Dialogue held this October, Japan proposed to hold a ASEAN-Japan Ministerial Dialogue on Environmental Cooperation and an ASEAN-Japan Environmental Week to showcase our collaboration. These proposals were well welcomed by the ASEAN member states. Looking ahead, the development of the ASEAN Climate Change Strategic Action Plan 2023 to 2030, which could serve as a guidance for each ASEAN country, will be a flagship activity of ASEAN and Japan. I'm looking forward to seeing the action plan finalized and presented at the next COP in UAE. I hope that cooperation between ASEAN and Japan will make further progress and wish to contribute to the decarbonization of Asia. With this, I would like to close the session, and thank you very much for your participation.